Further debate, the member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Speaker. It's an honour, as always, to rise in the House and to address this very important bill. And it is an issue that we've been hearing constantly for the last 3 months, certainly, in terms of the impact of this sudden economic shutdown on commercial landlords and on businesses, particularly on small businesses. So I would say that today being the third month anniversary of the emergency shutdowns, that this is good news indeed for small businesses in Ontario, that finally they have legislative protection against evictions in this province. And it's been something that people have been calling on the government to do consistently, and it has taken 3 months in order for us to get there, but better late than never. I would also say that, you know, in the last 3 months, we've seen unprecedented times in our province. It's a shutdown of the economy that was done by order of governments, federally, provincially, and municipally, so that we can protect lives and do what is right in the face of a healthcare pandemic. But in that time, as a result of the stay-at-home measures, 2.2 million people have lost jobs or seen a reduction in their hours. The FAO says that $23 billion has been wiped out from the economy, 9% decline in GDP. And, you know, this is really just the start. The road to recovery is going to be a long road. We're not seeing an increase in GDP until 2021. So the fact that we're only now just getting around to this legislation, to responding to the needs of those small businesses, it's really disheartening, because many small business owners, and I've done roundtables in my riding of Scarborough-Guildwood, I've done 2 so far, where I've talked to small businesses and I've talked to sector-specific businesses such as the restaurant sector. They are feeling vulnerable, and these are creative individuals, and they put their heart and their soul into their businesses, and yet, you know, they're unsure, they're uncertain. They don't know if, when they finally get the chance to reopen, if customers will come back. They don't even actually know if their employees will come back. What they do know is that their costs are increasing, and they are not certain if their sales and their revenue models are going to work. They actually don't know if the space in which they occupy, that if they will be able to continue to operate profitably in those locations. And, you know, one small business owner said to me, he actually is the owner of the Old Stone Cottage, a very famous local pub in Scarborough, and he has multiple landlords. He has different landlords for different locations, and the response of the landlords to the programs that are available are very different. They're not the same, they're not consistent, and what this bill does, it actually adds a measure of consistency in terms of how the rules are applied. And I think that that's what my colleague, the member from Ottawa South, was trying to say, that we can't just talk about doing the right thing. We actually have to put legislation in place that ensures that everyone has a level and an even and a fair playing field when it comes to the business environment. And so I support the change in the date to May 1st as requested by the Greens and by the Ontario Liberals, to make sure that there is a retroactive effective date of May 1st. But I think that 5 months is not enough. And, you know, I would really encourage the government members to really listen to those witnesses and those individuals that are coming forward to the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs, because they are really telling us that it's not a short-term uncertainty that they face as business owners. They don't know if they're going to make it through the next 3 months. I've surveyed as part of the consultation businesses, and many of them, we asked the question specifically, do you believe that you will survive for the next 3 months? And many of them say, we don't know. So providing this, this peace of mind that there would not be any evictions, by doing additional measures to encourage landlords to participate in the program, the CECRA program that is available. Only 2% of landlords of the program has been spent so far. That's not very much. So we need to do things to encourage these landlords to apply for this program. And also, one of the recommendations that I would put forward is that we look at the Quebec model, Speaker, because in Quebec, we're not just urging landlords to do the right thing, we're actually they are putting money behind their message. And for the CECRA program, they have actually stepped in to provide a further 50% reduction in the amount that is typically foregone by landlords. And so the landlords are now only required to contribute 12.5%. Right? So they're encouraged to contribute 12.5%, and the province is, or the government of Quebec is putting in an additional 12.5% because they want businesses to survive. And I think that's something that we have to pay attention to here, that we are at risk of many businesses not coming back, just disappearing altogether. Why, come out with a program after the fact? We need to be proactive, and we need to support businesses so that they survive. And I would encourage the government to do all that it can to fight for the businesses and to make sure that they survive. I want to, the minister, when he was speaking, and I was listening to him to just to make sure that, this was something that they were doing in earnest. And, one of the things that he said was that, I'm trying to find my written notes here, Speaker, because I want to quote what he said. He said that he's not sure if they will thrive. And, I know that that is a reality, but as the individual that is meant to champion this recovery on that side of the House, I think that it is up to us to work together with the business community, particularly the small business community, to make sure that they recover as best as possible, and that our neighbourhoods and our communities are actually thriving. I believe that we should be setting up a business support, responsive helpline, a hub of information that is accessible to businesses, to give them the information that they need, to help them through any application processes. I was a small business owner myself, Speaker. I started a small business in the midst of a recession, and, sometimes small businesses really struggle with the forms and the red tapes and accessing the information that they need. We should be doing more to make it easier for them. Today, I spoke with a landlord, and I have to say this particular landlord is not the easiest to deal with, and I know because I have negotiated our lease with this landlord. But he said to me, that every landlord should be forced to participate in this program. And he was referring to the CECRA program. He said that it wasn't until he actually went through the completion process of filling out the forms that he recognized the value in the process and the value in how the government has responded in support of businesses through this, and including landlords through this. And so, this is something that I feel is essential. We need to make sure that no small business is lost in the recovery process because we didn't act and act quickly enough. It is incumbent on us, right? Because behind all of these small businesses are jobs and wages and employment. And in many instances, we're seeing some of our most iconic businesses who are not making it. They're closing their doors. And so whatever measure we can do, we need to do it as quickly as possible and for as long as we're able to do it so that we can provide as much certainty and support to the small business community in every part of Ontario, in our northern communities, in our rural main streets, towns and cities, and in our large urban centres. So I want to say thank you, Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this very important bill. And we should have acted much sooner, but the fact that we're doing it here today and we're staying as a House to do this debate this evening, I think it's very important. Thank you so much.